We here at TabbFORUM have talked a lot about big data over the last year and a half. Well, today I'm joined by Stan Altshuller of Novus Partners, and we want to talk about the practical use of big data within the buy side. Stan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Stan, how is the buy side actually using big data today to improve their performance?
Absolutely, and that's a very important question. The shift in the industry right now to big data takes on many different forms. Some managers use big data in order to detect buy or sell signals based on data from mobile applications, click data, spending data, and things like that. I think the one big data area that has not gotten a lot of love, frankly, is the data that's basically thrown off by the investment process of the manager themselves.
So the managers within the buy-side institutions throwing off or letting all this data just sort of spill to the floor and not use it?
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. So massive amounts of data is actually generated by each and every single trade. Whether it's a buy or sell, these things are recorded, and the administrator strikes the NAV of every single security and investment for a hedge fund. And what happens is that data really just sits there. Now what's happening with some firms, some funds, is that they're using this data set in order to analyze their own investment process and squeeze out more alpha out of their own investment process.
I mean, this doesn't, I mean, to me, as being not a buy-side trader, I mean, how much data are we talking about? Are these really very large data sets, or is this just sort of, is it really big data, and how hard is it to manipulate that data?
That's a great question again. In some cases, especially when we're talking about managers that trade a lot, that generate a lot of trades, intraday trading.
High velocity of trading.
More high frequency trading, exactly. These data sets can be massive. And they don't have to be high velocity trade, just people that execute a few hundred trades a day are going to have massive amounts of data, because you take daily data and you run that back a few years and do the math. We have some clients with multi-billion rows of data that are basically a gold mine. Using that data in order to educate yourself on what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong can mean the difference between a mediocre year and a great year.
I mean, how much differential are we talking about here? A few basis points, hundreds of basis points? I mean, what is the difference of being able to use and manipulate this data effectively versus those who don't, and what type of difference can we see?
Well, let me give you a very practical example. This is something that we see quite often with our hedge fund clients. When we come in and we take the data extract from the administrator, one of the things that is very often surprising for the manager to see is how much their position sizing actually detracts from their annual performance. In some cases, within the case of even large value long short equity managers, their smallest positions are a continuous drag on their performance. That's just using one example. Using data that they already own, this is their own asset, analyzing position sizing alpha through history will actually shed light on that phenomenon, and they can take action to minimize that behavior, maybe cut their smallest positions or take them out altogether. This translates into hundreds of basis points a year just based on this one investment behavior.
This one factor.
This one factor. And then you have other factors.
How much data, if I'm a hedge fund manager and I'm thinking, okay, I want to improve my efficiency here, how much back data do I need to actually start running this type of analysis? Can I do it myself, or do I need sort of more advanced technical sort of expertise and higher level of compute capabilities?
Some funds actually do this themselves. These tend to be the bigger well-funded operations that are multi-billion-dollar shops that have the resources to allocate to the technology that's needed to analyze the data of that scale. But the majority of the funds, by numbers at least, the majority of the funds do not have the resources and do not have the personnel to be able to do this sort of analysis. And at that point, they're better off buying versus building and going with a system that will allow them to extract value out of their own data.
How long, from the point of saying, okay, this is something I'm interested in doing, how complex, how long will it take someone to actually start reaping rewards from some type of
Fantastic question. This is something that's asked by a lot of managers when we first come in to meet them. The rewards, and significant rewards, can happen quite soon. So if we come into a manager with this one surprising idea, hey, you are really over trading on your short side. In fact, you're trading so much that it's costing you 300 basis points of return annualized. They slow down the trading. You have to heed the signal. If you don't heed the signal, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Keep doing what you're doing, you're going to accept the same results. But if they heed the signal, they reduce their trading, we see the results just tick up. And this is right after they implement that change.
Right, and this is a prolonged, I mean, it's not just a change, this carries over for future returns.
This is a behavioral change that the manager can choose to institute for the remainder of their investment life, and it's something that they should keep monitoring. Is what I'm doing actually working? Right. Now I'm reduced the trading on my short side. Does that actually increase the return I get from my short book? Does it or does it not? If not, we have to go back and reanalyze what's happening that is not going according to our expectations.
So it seems like this is a very practical utilization of data that's just normally being cast off and disposed of within the institution.
Well, I don't think it's being disposed of. It's just not
being used.
It's certainly not being used. When you kind of look at the reasons why, a hedge fund manager might go to the administrator and say, hey, I'd like a download of all my historical data on a daily basis. The administrator might not have a very clean data set that's easily available and analyzable by the manager. There needs to be cleaning and all sorts of verifications that happens on top of the data before you can actually use it as investment signal. That's one of the impediments of using that data set.
Well, this sounds like a really interesting topic. I think we're going to talk more and more about this. I think we've talked about one aspect of this. I'm sure there's multifaceted aspects of this beyond just how you use your short book. But Stan, I want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.